If you weren't sick of seeing my logo enough, just realized it was like mindful exposures. Hello, thank you, Shem. How you doing?
Not too bad. How about you?
Pretty good. I am enjoying this conversation that we've been having and looking forward to sharing this with everybody else. Because even though what we've touched on, I just think this is a cool sync. So I'm down and ready to go. Sorry, really quick, I was just going to apologize. It took us a while because I slacked in I shouldn't necessarily say slack, but my research was like compounding on itself and I had more than I thought I would. And so my video is not 100%, but we have enough to show to get the conversation going, and then I'll put something out later. So, but please, I'm going to try not to overtext Shem. We've got a little delay going on, so I apologize in advance.
No, it's all good. I mean, that's what researching is. It always happens. You just come across more information and more information. So to pick a point to cut it off and put something out.
Exactly. How you guys doing? We got Phoenix Fire, my new friend Paula, and Kevin Calistoga, and JJ Organics, and 24/7. And I did get to see your email 24/7, but I just didn't get to respond yet. But I totally, he showed this really cool, and I can show some of this online. And Jillian Rachel, and it's like a sumo wrestler, but it's Aztec, and it looks like has dragon symbolism on it. So, new Pareidolia friend from Utah. Okay, so today's topic, what we're going to get into is, and let me just kind of pull this up. I have a little intro video, except for as I'm trying to find it here, there it is. we're going to go over, I'm not sure if much of you guys know about something called the Russian American Company, but part of my research started with doing some boots on the ground. I went to California and I went to this place called Fort Ross, and it was quite spectacular, the design. Hey, Calix, glad you're here, Paula. And yeah, he's awesome. Actually, I don't know he or she, but whatever. Anyway, so
Hola, Julia.
and I got a chance to check out this fort, and it was really cool. And so I did all this research, and then come to find out it was a Russian settlement, and there was this whole integration with Hawaii and Northern California, as well as Alaska, which some of you might already know about. And I don't know if some of you know that Russia sold Alaska back to the United States in 1867, but for some period of time they owned parts of Alaska and British Columbia. And Paula, I wasn't talking about you, I know. It's all good. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I don't even know why I said that. I just realized I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, anyway, so I have a little intro video to get us started, but Shem's going to help us kind of pull this all in, especially because of his research. And that's what I was kind of excited about with getting into some of this. But I'm going to share some of that footage from the fort because it was like a reenactment. So they had everything all kind of set up, and they had the towers, with the good information in there, and the mock cannons and stuff too. But just so you could see the design. And it'll be cool to share with you guys the design of the Hawaii fort too, which you're going to see in a minute. So I'm going to pull that up.
Hawaii story is insane.
Yeah. And the fact that as I'm doing the research, it was like the least discussed. And more or less what we're told is that it was like a poo-poo, like it wasn't actually supposed to happen. And the person who went in didn't get permission. Oh, also, I didn't tell you about this, Shem, but we'll get into it. The person who built the fort was an agent and from an outside country of Russia. And it literally says an agent of the Russian American Company. And he instructed a native king from Hawaii how to build this fort. So I'll show that. Let me just show this intro video so you can get an idea what the hell we're talking about. What's up, Smoking in G Sharp? Nice to see you. All right, here we go. More logo. So it's just your little introduction to the areas I ended up researching because of more or less specifically the Russian American company. And what's interesting to kind of came about with Shem and I too was the dates on some of this. So what they're telling us when they came, and part of this research led me down to the expeditions that the Russians were doing throughout the Alaska area as well. So there's going to be more to that with like actual more history here, and that's what we're gonna discuss some of that tonight, and just talk dates a little bit, but also because we're kind of hinting at something at the end of this really is to really where are we from? Are we not all just potentially integrated anyway as it is? So yeah, so sorry, go ahead, Jim.
The scene with the flag, well, that was in Hawaii, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. Like, what's the story? Like, how did they get down to Hawaii? Do you know?
So, okay, so the deal is that it's this guy, Greg Anton Schaefer. Okay, so some of you guys know that I'm kind of public with who I am, but that is like a direct descendant of me. So that's super fun off the bat.
Wow.
And then he's a German physician, so he's not even Russian, and he's an agent of the Russian American company. Mind you, there's plenty of history around the 1700s of the British being up in this area as well, trying to monopolize on the fur trade as well. And by the way, that is the story we're told, is that the Russians came over because in a matter of like less than 100 years, they had overhunted their coastline of all the fur trade, and so they were moving into Alaska to hone in on all the resources.
Yeah, the key point about that is they're talking about they're hunting Siberia to extinction. That means that they're up in Siberia, which if you look at Siberia on a map today, it's like completely devastated. So I don't know exactly what that means, but it's just interesting that they mentioned specifically that they were running out of animals in Siberia. That's why they came over, right?
Exactly. And so like from supposedly 1639 to 725, they had overhunted that entire area for the fur trade. So, and that leaves a lot of open questions because there's other forms of fur trade that have been around for a long time. Obviously, that was like a mass amount in a short amount of time. But the dates on that is what's interesting, especially because of the expeditions that were going on supposedly, and what Shem has just shown me too in his Marco Polo book of supposedly how far he had gone in his expeditions at a way earlier time frame.
Yeah, why did they have to look at everything as a resource, Phoenix Fire? Because for some reason there's something to do with maybe like the human ego. Their trade has a big factor in this. They want to control the economy for some reason. Because she just brought up Marco Polo. The reason that Marco Polo was even traveling was for economic reasons, because he basically was just trying to figure out what they could get from the East. That's why everything he writes in his book is almost like from the perspective of a merchant trying to, just determine where's the most value in this area. But just like what she was saying with the company, the Russian American company, it's like a charter company, which is a bunch of investors coming together and pitching in on an investment into an area of land. It's super weird because you find that all over the world, and even in the United States, like the Ohio company, the state of Ohio, which is where I'm at one point was under the jurisdiction of the Ohio company, which included a little bit beyond Ohio, but it's just a bunch of people who invested and basically founded this area and took it away from the people who were living here at the time. So I don't know,
and I think it's interesting because we talked about this, that they had actually forced the Aleutians into slavery, so there was a lot of death and slavery, but they also had really like forced them to depend on this trade now because that was their form of income. They had been doing this already in a more substantial and sustainable way, but to be able to have that competition or to be able to have their own resources, they had to get into this. And I think, or what it feels like, is that the Russians really were trying to colonize them in this format. And they called it like the barter economy, something that they had never seen before. And it was forcing them to go into dangerous situations and get more resources than that they were supposedly used to. So then, of course, that starts, fights. And then they had a little war, the Battle of Sitka, and hashed that out. But obviously there was the whole Orthodox integration that had happened prior to this already. So before the Russian American company came in, like just a few years prior, the whole Orthodox missionaries moved in and established the Russian Orthodox. And they actually, if you look at some old documentaries, they sort of tote themselves saying they came to save the natives by evangelizing them. And because of the fur traders were so harsh on them. And so there's a whole like gentrification happening of this entire native society and just being sort of changed into, well, who knows? I'm not going to say it was Russian establishment and if anything, that's all connected, but they were definitely trying to take over.
Yeah, I mean, it's debatable whether they're actually original Russians or usurpers. Like people like Anatoly Fomenko speculates that the Romanovs were a usurper type invaders to Russia, and before that it had been like a federation type situation, and that lines up with the time period kind of what we're talking about, because the Russian American companies in the late 1700s, and that the last kind of, I guess, example of some people say of Tartaria is with Pugachev's rebellion, and also the late 1700s, which would be like considered the last stand of the original way of Russia, of what Russia was before these invaders, I guess, took over. But this is all speculation, keep in mind. So yeah, that double-headed eagle, that's what we saw on that flag that was in Hawaii, and that symbol goes back to Germanic tribes, and then it moves over to Russia, and in modern day Russia, it's still used.
Yeah. Jillian was saying, wild connections, family on father's side is Russian. Then we have English and French, and that whole thing with French. Okay, and then on the other side, LO, it's truly fascinating. We look at our ancestors' imagination or immigration stories. Yeah. And I just found out, actually, while working on this project with Shem, I found out that I have connections to the Moors. That's actually, but that's complicated because it's an adopted name, and my grandfather supposedly lost, or his mother died on the ship coming over, and so his dad had too many kids to take care of, is the story, and so he adopted them all out.
Wow.
These are just random pictures they put together just so you guys can see. And see, here's that flag again that you see. And that was that map that I showed you guys. I think it's interesting because they're saying this is their territory, but and I thought I had a bigger picture. And they're showing that actually, like, Washington and Oregon was considered at one point contested land. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, there was something going on back then. You said the guy that was down in Hawaii was German, right? So it's interesting because the German Empire was also around back then. So if he's German, they're all the way over in Hawaii doing stuff.
That's a good point. It's interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. It's really interesting because I've never heard anything about that.
And this kind of gives you an idea of the spread out of the different nations. Because, like, living in Oregon, I do know that it's heavily, well, it says Ukrainian, which is interesting, but it actually has heavy Scandinavian connections. The coast does, especially Astoria.
Well, that's an interesting thing, is because it says like when they start keeping track of Russia in history, they say the first thing is the Kievan Rus, which is Kiev is in Ukraine, right?
Yep.
So so it's basically they're saying like it ties back into this whole like Khazarian Ukrainian race or whatever that people refer to a lot, and then moving in to take over Russia at some point, I guess. But I don't know. That it's very confusing. But the double-headed signal sign is found all the way back to the Principality of Moscow. What's this?
Wait, sorry, say that last part again.
The double-headed eagle in Russia. It's just the it goes all the way back to the Principality of Moscow, which is the Grand Duchy of Moscow.
Yes. And that's what we were kind of dissecting too, and obviously the symbolism. Oh, and then remember that one flag? Let me see if I can find that. Where I think it was a closer up, it had the double eagles on it, but it had, I wonder if I saved that, and it had the depiction of the knight slaying the dragon. And we were talking, just obviously we see the symbolism.
Yeah, I remember that.
This would be good to look at, but I'm not sure if I saved it now that I'm talking about it.
So what year did it say officially that they came over to America? And the narrative that you're covering.
Well, I'm getting the impression, because of what I just feel like when things get established like that in that time frame, and like we talked about, like the amount of time supposedly it took them just to migrate and then wipe out that population of the sea life. I get the very strong sense that there was obviously explorations over here way sooner. It really doesn't. And then something that I was going to share is all the islands that are actually Russian named. And the fact that also there's, again, literature that's, again, going over the fact that the British were up here, which would only insinuate that others were up here as well, exploring this area.
Oh yeah, I mean the Spanish were in control of it, like the West Coast for a long time, and the French had a lot of the West as well. So, and you find the same symbols from the French in all of these cultures.
And it's like, if you start to look at like supposed migration and then like the establishment dates is always really fascinating. So they're saying like in this area, this is the first known occupations, or like they're saying 1741. I saw some other maps that said 1721, and I was showing Shem this, that when you zoom on the first supposed ever settlement that existed in Alaska, it was right here. Now, there's a couple spots where, okay, potentially there's no known ruins left over. There's very little left over, supposedly, in the entire British Columbia and Alaska area. But they're saying like right off these steep cliffs and these, a lot of this is tundra, a lot of this is like marshy mush, unless it's covered in snow. That fascinates me right off the bat. And then they said this site was moved later, and that's what is like now Kodiak, which is up here. But like going through the search, and you'll see little other names that this actually is connected to. I think this is, I'm trying to remember right now, but this name is connected. This is connected, and this is fascinating. This is a World War II bunker that I found by trying to find ruins, and otherwise it's not marked at all. You have to do special searching to find it, but there are World War II bunkers tucked in here. That's kind of random, but this is a Russian name. And then I've marked as much as I can with research and then by the names, but there's obviously multiple other sites. There's an Orthodox church just right, or monastery right here, and can only be reached under special expeditions and treks because of the weather. And then, so this is the first known, right? Say that again, sorry?
Say, like, how many people can even make it out there?
Like once a year is they have these tracks, and they're specifically for religious purposes. Hey, what's up, Realist McCoy? Sorry, guys, I'll meant to stay on top of the chat a little bit too, but thank you all for being here. And so then, sorry, go ahead.
No, you can finish. It's okay.
I'll
bring up something that pull up after this.
Oh, the only other thing I want to say, okay, so supposedly this is the first settlement, okay, but then at the same time, the same year, this is also one of the top settlements, is Sitka. There's a lot of history, and like one of the first churches, St. Michael, is set up here, and they rebuilt it. Like it burnt down at one point, but that's one of the like oldest ruins. And this island is literally named off after the founder of the Russian American company. But all of these names tucked into these islands are Russian, and so you can kind of track. So anyway, the same year they're saying that they landed, established here, and then obviously like cleared this area out in, again, less than 100 years.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And then made their way all the way down here, and like before or 15 years after they established the company and set up down here. Marked. And that's the footage I have. I'm messing it up, but they're like, okay. And by the way, this is actually known as the Lost Coast of Northern California. These are not very highly populated areas. This is one of my favorite places to go because of that. But there's like really cool, and Highway 1's not, oh, that's why I was looking at the wrong area. Highway 1's right here. And I have footage, by the way, too, of this, so we'll go into that. There's some really interesting history on this lighthouse.
Nice.
I thought it was just north. Oh no, it's south. That's right, it's south of Point Arena. I'm sorry, I was trying to show where it was, but it's like it's like not. It's not in your face. I know. Oh, there it is. There it is. And then they established like randomly, middle of nowhere. So here's Fort Ross, and this was a little bit in relation to the Hudson Bay Company. They were trying to kind of set up their own establishment. So they're like right here. San Francisco's right here. This is, again, turn of the century times. They would have just been operating on a ship. And then I can show you some of the footage, but they had fully integrated with the natives. So there was like more natives there, almost making it look like they were families, but I'm pretty sure there was still slavery going on. So Bernie, what's up?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right. Okay, and it looks like Shem's got something up to share, so I'm going to let him pop his thing.
I forget. I sent you something the other day, but I don't remember the exact date of the last native tribe in California that was contacted. It was in like the mid 1800s. They had never been contacted by Europeans, allegedly. So it's weird how these tribes are living so close to these civilizations. I'm sorry. I apologize about my cat, by the way. She's in heat. She's freaking out right now. I gave her catnip, but it didn't really work, I guess. Okay, so the reason I'm bringing this up is because we're talking about Russians being in America, and she just discussed how easy for these people to conquer the West Coast within 100 years, which I didn't even know until she just said that, so I appreciate it. But is it likely that these people were already just, they had some sort of communication or some sort of foundation already set up, or a government, is what I'm wondering, because until the Romanovs came to power in Russia, Russia was basically a massive federation with multiple peoples, just the same way it is today, with multiple different peoples living under one kind of government, but being sort of independent. So there's multiple races cooperating, which is basically the area that we would call Tartaria today. But I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they cover it up, because they were just a lot more advanced than what they want to give them credit for, and they had been around for a long time. And for some reason, they don't really mention that they made their way over to America, at least in some of these older books, which is what I'm bringing up right now. So this here is talking about how they found ruins similar to those that you find in Siberia. I'm highlighting that right here, that bear evidence of Mongol origin. So this is 39 degrees west of Lake Erie, which is in the Midwest of the United States. So basically what this is saying is that this type of Mongolian people they have evidence of them making their way all the way over to this area. And the Mongolians aren't necessarily like a Asian specific type people. It's various different peoples because they're all ancestors of the same people. They came from the same people, but they interbred with different types at different points in history. So that's why you have people looking different. But the Mongolians are the people that they're referring to when they say that word are not necessarily Asian specific people, because these people first started in the area around the Levant, then made their way out to Eastern Asia, then made their way back over again. And it's been like a back and forth type thing for much of history. But
and I do think that there's something else to play with the Russian American company in general. Like they were an organization of a lot more than just that country. Even though they initially got their order from Emperor Peter the Great, which is a connection, right? From
and he's a Romanov, and he's connected. That's what I'm saying. He's connected with this whole like bloodline of kings and queens that was all across Europe at that time in history, and had a lot of power in North America and South America as well. But yeah, this book is interesting. We'll to check out another page here that talks about how there's Roman buildings when they arrive, and how the Peruvians are ancestors of Kublai Khan. Yeah, this book it makes some pretty crazy claims, but let's check it out.
Yes, please.
So the opinion of the writer is that Mango Capac, the first Inca of Peru, was a son of the Grand Khan Kublai. So eventually in this book, it gets to the point where they say that during the conquest of Japan from the Mongols, I guess, when some of the Mongols tried to retreat, they ended up accidentally making their way over to Peru, and that's the origin of this, according to this book, because the Mongols tried to invade Japan, and there was like a tsunami or something that prevented them from making progress, and some of them got stranded on an island, which is an interesting theory to how the modern Japanese people look. Well, we could get into that, but the other people allegedly died. But the alternative, which this book puts across, is that they made their way to South America. But yeah, basically, there's a lot of evidence in this book or I guess there's not really that much evidence, but there's some evidence in here that could prove that, I guess, the Incas are descendants of the Mongols. They had similar practices. I mean, the original Mongolian type religion was like a matriarchal type religion, which you found a lot in the Americas before the arrival of the Europeans. So there could be that kind of connection as well.
And remind everybody what the story is, if I'm remembering correctly, of who I'm going to say Butcher's name. I can say it, but I can't spit it out. Quetzalcoatl. You know what I'm trying to say? You want to say it?
Quetzalcoatl. Yeah,
Quetzalcoatl, yes. And who he was supposed to be?
There's various interpretations. Some people say that he was representative it goes as far as people saying he's a representative of the Atlanteans, like some sort of race from Atlantis that survived the flood and came over and gave knowledge to the Aztecs and the Mayans. Some say that he was related to like the mythology of Zeus, or I don't know. There's various opinions, but basically it comes down to they say he had blonde hair and blue eyes, and that he basically came out of the sea, which is similar to various mythologies from around the world. You have the same story of someone coming out of the ocean and bringing this knowledge and creating society. Same thing in Sumeria. But yeah, so that's Quetzalcoatl, I guess. Sorry, my cat's driving me crazy.
It's okay because now I'm dealing with the dogs that I'm watching. What's up, Tid Top? Thanks for joining us.
But yeah, so I guess I could bring up a map of the dispersion of the Indo-Europeans, which is another term for Aryan before World War II, but these people arrived at some point around the world and seem to have brought the knowledge of civilization with them. There's a lot of different interpretations of what that could mean, though.
But with so many similarities.
Here we go. So yeah, it's just spreading out over time. Turkey, so you see right there to the right, you see that's the Mongolian culture that I'm talking about. When you look up the history of the Mongols, the Tartar peoples, who are also the Turkic peoples, who are currently in the area of Constantinople, Turkey, that's where they say they come from, is over here on the right side of the map. And they work their way back over, apparently. But when you look up these people, they're like European. A lot of them have red hair and blue eyes, and they're very pale.
I think this map is very fascinating and huge.
I'm trying to find a different map real quick of oh, actually I can show this instead. So this is the first reported Russian civilization called the Kievan Rus. If you look at this symbol here, this is the fleur-de-lis because they're more than likely, but this is also the sign that you see in Ukraine today. But this is more than likely a remnant of the Holy Roman Empire, the Merovingians making their way over into Russia, taking it over. So that's when this kind of feeds into that narrative of the invaders. However, this is long before the Romanovs. It's the only thing. I don't know. There seems to be like a back and forth battle between these different peoples throughout history, like two different sides.
And Jillian in 24/7 just pointed out that the feathered serpent connection, Thunderbird, in relation to Zeus, all that. Just obviously connecting the gods aspect to it.
Yeah, it's weird how they all have that Vajra weapon that you see, the Thunderbolt. It's basically like representing this thing called the Vajra from Hindu mythology.
Yes.
That you even see it in Mayan cultures here. Like, for example, this guy here, Slalak, he's holding basically like a Zeus Thunderbolt or Vajra, because in the older depictions of Zeus's Thunderbolt, it looks exactly like a Vajra. Let me pull it up real quick.
That's so cool. I've not seen that.
But yeah, there's a lot of evidence for these cultures being connected. Now, what exactly do they represent? That's an entire different argument. But did you want to bring up those bullet points real quick before we get into that kind of extra speculation stuff? Because it gets pretty crazy.
Actually, I think it's good because I feel like I pulled out for the bullet points, like the main things I wanted to talk about, because I really just wanted to talk about like the new barter economy that they were exposed to, and with the takeover, and then the connection with the Orthodox aspect of it too, because and they really like, you know, try to say, hey, like we are we're going to integrate. Now there is like a connection with the Russian Orthodox spreading away from the East and the West Church, and supposedly they're a little more like, there's some still strict guidelines, but they're like supposedly a little more relaxed, and they're also, their shrines are set up for like what the kingdom of heaven is to be, what the future is to be, instead of the past. So there's some like separations there, but regardless, I think it's just for me, it felt like it was to, like I said, just take over their beliefs and like colonize them, domesticate them. And maybe that was part of their history and what we know about with the migrations, that they have this tactic to come in and do those type of things. So that's really all. I think we can get into the rest of it, but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think it's possible that they were chasing these people down, I guess, at some point in history, because it could explain the connections between their religions, but it's hard to tell because a lot of history seems to have been created within the last 100 years. That's kind of the issue I've been running into recently doing some of the stuff I've been working on, is that the goddess ties into a lot of this, the whole connection with like Inanna, the queen of heaven, and in connection to like Dionysus and the mystery religions. But a lot of the discoveries for these sources came within the last 100 years or so. So it's kind of hard to rely on them, especially when they're pushing an agenda that completely changes society. So it's like, what exactly are they? Were they created? Was, like, for example, like this whole Tartaria thing, like the idea behind it is like almost like the feminine energy taking over. Like, does this relate to that time period 100 years ago where this certain group came to power and started changing society? Like, was all this history kind of just created, I guess? It's just weird. It's just weird how
move back. Well, that's the story, right? That it was like, it used to be Lilith and Adam and they were equals. And it came to a point where she stemmed away, and so she's supposedly the returning energy. She's not the one that wanted to like live in a conformed world where then like sin was created in that sense. And so like coming back to like, anyway, obviously it's complicated. No, I mean, and I agree with you. I totally agree with you. It's really hard. I think all of us talk about that in everything we go through in our research. But I can't get away, and I say this way too much lately, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm really starting to feel like we're supposed to kind of put like they've shown this in the movie too, the Da Vinci Code. Like, this is like a puzzle piece you have to sort of figure out. And what's up, Dom? I'm really glad you're here.
That's the thing. Like, even though I'm considering what I just said, I still entertain other theories. I don't really know what's going on.
That's
so
important.
I think about it from every perspective possible. So that's why I'm willing to say things like that, but it doesn't mean that's the end all be all of it. Like,
exactly. And that's why you're one of the best researchers. That's why you really are. You're good, trust me.
Not at all, but
and then you put out some funny stuff too. So win-win.
But as far as like why all the religions are the same stuff, if we do entertain the idea that history is real, everything we have from history is real, it wasn't created 100 years ago, like I was saying, then you could say, yeah, maybe there is some sort of back and forth between the feminine rule and the masculine society. And that's why it goes back to the beginning of recorded civilization. You have all these myths being the same, with the universe starting out from chaos and coming into order, and then back and forth throughout history. And maybe the reason we have these same symbols in North America, some of these civilizations, is that they were this culture running away from these people, and they were chased down when the Europeans allegedly arrived in North America and got to them. But I mean,
there is a lot of, like, think about how many stories there are of like old hierarchies moving out and that like being chased out. Like, funny story is my ex's last name is connected to Selma Hayek, and they found out that they were from a tribe in Iraq, but they were of like, there was like a new king that came in and pushed out the old king. And so all these people who had names connected to this old king were being threatened, their lives. So a whole ton of them got up from Iraq and moved to Mexico and integrated. And so there's a lot of like, the grandma was from Iraq and grandpa was from Mexico, or vice versa. So that's kind of interesting, because a lot of people don't, I think, realize like how often that happened, and even in earlier time frames. So that would have been 1900s.
Well, I mean, even the UN released a study that showed that like the Phoenicians had the capability of making it over to America. They built a replica Phoenician ship and sailed it from Carthage or Tunisia all the way to America. So
yeah,
think about what that means. That means that one of the oldest civilizations was able to make it to America if they wanted to, which we have legends at least of them making it over here. And in some of these books, there's descriptions of Phoenician artifacts. I've also seen other people bring up Phoenician artifacts that have been found in America. So it's just.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it's actually, it's just more or less like the story to cover it up was this washed up versus was it actually there? Because I think they were found on the coastline, but I'm pretty sure. I think it was in California too.
There's some I've heard about cases in the middle of the United States as well, just all over the place, but they always usually say that they're hoaxes. But and then of course the Smithsonian gets involved and takes away a lot of stuff as well, which I've sent some angry emails to them, but they never responded, of course.
What? They didn't? Come on.
That's it.
Now that you said that too, I think in my research I did read this one weird part about the Smithsonian and something about what they were trying to do to preserve the history of the Russian American company, I think. But I'm not going to try to find that right this second because it's like a sentence somewhere in one of those articles I read. But regardless, this is all going to connect to some of the future episodes we're going to do, and the expeditions I'm still planning to do next summer with us trying to show. Hopefully, Shem, you be able to join us on one of those, but trying to expose ancient America, which was. If you guys had saw my post, I ended up going with Pareidolia Dreams, but we were bouncing back and forth on names for this because we're, like one of the things that I think is just going to help with, not really for our community necessarily, though I think some of this is new, but to open up the minds to others who maybe have humored it that there was an ancient America, like obviously the Grand Canyon thing, but there's stuff coming out that since I've been exposed to it now with Utah. And so then what's surrounding all these areas, which have similar connections. And I mean, the ancient dwellings, the amount of ancient dwellings between Colorado and Utah is, I think it's more than native. But anyway, go ahead.
There's probably even a lot more than we know about because the stuff that you find in Cappadocia, for example, the underground cities all over that area of Anatolia, I guarantee you that there's stuff like that in America, but we just can't get to it. They have a lot of stuff fenced off. I look into mounds a lot in Ohio, and the reason I haven't been updating that much on them is because I can't get to any of the mounds that are allegedly on these maps. They're all blocked off, so I have to like sneak in there or they're gone completely. It's insane.
Yeah, and that's like Bernie even trying to go to that like known monument. There's no sort of preservation on it. It's on some ranch land, right? And then there's videos out of all these cave networks where they're like, it's literally they're cemented closed, and they have like ventilation systems too, so it's kind of confusing. Or there's big iron doors on them that have been soldered closed. And that's all really interesting.
Soldered, wow.
I know, it's like. I'm trying to figure out if they were just old passageways and outposts, but that the tunnel still exists. I don't know. Hello, Brown's boy.
Hello, Brown boy.
There's some new names in here. It's a fun one.
I'm trying to look for this. There's this passage in this book at some point that says something about Russian glass. I'm trying to find it. Being in America from ancient times. But yeah. This is an interesting line. So that when the Tartars, Scythians, and descendants of the 10 lost tribes came across the Straits of Bering, and that they fell easy prey to those fierce, savage northern hordes, it's not likely that the vast warlike preparations which extend over the whole continent, south of certain places of Canada, were thrown up all of a sudden on a first discovery of a strange enemy. So basically what that's saying.
Yeah, that's basically saying like what I just said, the savage northern hordes. Interesting.
Oh yeah, this part's interesting as well. It talks about a fort in Marietta, Ohio, which is on the southeast part of Ohio, and I guess there's like ruins of a Roman fort there. It's really far from where I'm at, or else I'd go there and check it out in person. I thought this, I don't know.
Well, that was nice when you zoomed in. It was a little easier to read. Not that it was impossible, but it's just.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. That's nice though. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the glass section that I was hunting for originally because it specifically says Russian glass was found.
No, it did. Yeah, go up. It just said it right there. Go up just a little bit. The last sentence right there. It says on the breast of the skeleton was found a quantity of insin glass, a substance sometimes used by ancient Russians for the purpose that glass is now used.
Yeah, so this is talking about the fort in Marietta, Ohio, I believe. It has this ancient Russian glass. Yeah, thanks for spotting that.
Yeah, no problem. I'm good with that. Sometimes not always remembering things.
So yeah, I mean, this is by a source that some people don't like too much, Josiah Priest, but I mean, some of the stuff can be proven. I looked up some of the stuff that is in this book, the artifacts. It talks about various artifacts being found, like a Greek helmet and all that good stuff.
And I mean, you're not far from, have you looked much into the Illinois caves? I thought I might have sent you something on that too, but I'm not sure now.
Not at all. I don't think you did.
Well, there may be the opportunity to have you meet up with the guy who has like regular access to it, but that's Aztec. And this is where I think we connect the whatever this Tartaria is to I mean, you were just saying Peru and the fact that the Incas and the Aztec, right? And so just trying to make those connections more, but I'm going to I'll send you that information.
Yeah, I think I mean, all we have is really old books from people like Josiah Priest that they always claim are these conspiracy theorists that talk about this stuff, but we do have a lot of references of these cultures being in America before World War II. I mean, this is a book from the 1800s. I think it's like 1833. Yeah, 1833. Talking about this kind of stuff. Like right here, it says a Roman
anything
coin.
about Spanish artifacts? I think I see something about Romans.
Yeah, Roman coin found in Ohio. Presence of ancient Romans in America. The remains of former dwellings found along the Ohio, where the stream has in many places washed away its banks. Hearths, fireplaces are brought to light from 2 to 6 feet deep below the surface. But it was talking about how they found Roman rooms along the Ohio River, which I don't know. Like, for example, if you go to Springfield, Ohio, which is like this random town, you see all these like Roman depictions and the fleur-de-lis all over the buildings and all these crazy buildings just in the middle of nowhere. That the reason that they give is that it was connected to Buffalo, New York at one point with a train station, but still, it's like.
Well, and there's that. You start getting into that, so you start getting into that weird sister cities thing too, and because that kind of stems actually around the country that happened a lot. I don't know if you know, like your town or the major town in Ohio. I'm trying to think of the capital all of a sudden, but
Columbus.
Columbus, yeah, probably has a sister city in another country as well as in the United States, and there's like weird things with that, obviously through follow the money type stuff. What's up, Mr. Rath?
I don't remember the sister cities. I know one of them's in Germany though. But
yeah.
Now Columbus is an interesting place because this is like the hub of the mound builders. Basically, is this area that is Columbus, and I don't know. Like I could actually bring up this book real quick and show you some of the.
Yeah. Some of this, I'm wondering if I should take some of these experts from what you're showing and put it in my final video.
Well, yeah, we should get back to the subject of the video. Like, if you want to bring up those bullet points and maybe ask some questions about it.
Oh no, just mainly. You know what? Really, Shem, I can just play the video in the background. But I like you if you want to talk about the books over. But I don't know. It's also really cool to look at these books. So it's up to you. It's just like I just have that random footage from the. Oh yeah, I need to. That I can just show from the place. It's cool because it just it's like they turned this whole place into like a reenactment. So it actually shows like, you know, what it should have looked like. And then the day I was there, of course, they're literally doing a reenactment, so everybody's dressed up in attire. And I end up walking in at some point where everybody else is in this other building because the parking lot was like decently full and like nobody was back in the fort area. So I had it like all to myself. It was really cool.
Yeah, there.
That's also about don't walk in the front door, take the back route. All right. Anyway, I can just play that while you're reading stuff from books. You want to do that? And I want you to.
Are we gonna be able to see? Are we gonna be able to see the screen? Because I just want to show this map real quick. That's.
Yeah, please. No, do that. Do that first. I'm just gonna get right.
This is completely off topic, but Brown's Boy, that stream with Santos where he was showing the 2-month-old urine or like the 2-year-old urine or whatever. Oh my god. Sorry, I just thought about that because I saw Brown's Boy.
Was he making his own Philosopher's Stone?
Dude, I don't know. I saw it earlier when I was like about to get into the shower and I started cracking up. But
I bet he's sipping it every day. I don't know if you guys know this, but that's like a new. I shouldn't say new. It's an old like natural cure. Like people are curing their cancer by fasting on their own urine, and they let it. You have to let it sit out so that you know it releases certain. Yeah.
I'm not doing it. I feel like that's.
Why?
I'm not really into the psyop.
Really? Wait.
If I were to choose, if I was gonna choose something that is like an agency or someone playing a joke on someone, this is what I would choose: is drinking your own urine.
You have the option to sing and dance or drink your own pee. What do you do?
Sing and dance or drink my own pee?
Yeah.
Sing and dance. Definitely sing and dance.
Yeah, right? I know, I'm teasing, but I have it makes me laugh because it's just like fun to be able to talk about, but like at the same time, like in all the ways that we can heal ourselves right now, and that's your choice, I'm gonna pass on it too. I'm not gonna do Bear Grylls today.
That's weird, but I mean, I guess I haven't looked into it, so I guess I am kind of just being an asshole right now. But it is what it is. All right, so this is
I think it's fascinating because there's actually reported cases and it's being taken seriously that they are curing their cancer with it. And now we're getting off topic. You're right, so I'm going to shut up. But regardless, there's like a million other ways.
Sounds like you said you tried it. Are you saying it's good? Sorry for hating on it if you said so.
It's amazing. I'm not going to drink it. I'm not going to do it either. I'm going to shut up. Okay, move on. All
right, so this is the Archaeological Atlas of Ohio. This is from the early 1900s. Here.
Shem, we lost you for a second. It might be my connection, actually. Just hold on. Start over again. Or unless that's me, guys, I'm sorry. But you were just cutting out a bunch.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear me. All right. I think it's because I'm moving this around too much and my internet or my computer is like terrible.
Computers cannot compute. Okay, I'm shutting up.
So all these red triangles are mounds. All the red lines are either earthworks or some of the examples are like a giant. What they say is they write big next to it usually. Like look, it's a larger structure. Real quick here, but I checked out a lot of these sites, and a lot of them are either blocked off along there. But you can just see how many there are. This is down comes right here.
Wow. Yeah.
It has like an entire underground area. I used to deliver for FedEx in downtown Columbus, and there was like underground roads and all this crazy stuff. But the original area that was settled was Franklinton over here to the left, but it floods very easily. And down here on Mount Street in Franklinton was the largest mound in Ohio, but it no longer exists. They apparently got rid of it, and there's no public photos of it whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's weird.
We have this place called the Ohio History Connection, just east of downtown, northeast. But I'm not sure if they'll let us look at the photos if I go there or not. They have like displays that they put out, but I'm not sure if I go there and just like, can I see some photos of the mound or some depictions of it? Because they have a bunch of Native American artifacts. They did a show on PBS or NPR or something like 5 years ago where they were showing some of the mounds, and they went into like their behind the scenes area, and they had all these artifacts from Native American tribes that are just like sitting in all these boxes that aren't even on display. And they had maps that aren't on the internet, like a map that I've taken screenshots of from their video so I could find some mounds.
That's interesting. Are they saying they took the artifacts from the mounds by chance?
Yeah. So like that's another connection with the whole Mongolian, Tartarian people crossing over to America, because some of these mounds are described in the same way that if you like read something like Herodotus or Diodorus of Sicily, for example, and they talk about the Scythians, which are the same things as like the Tartars and the Mongolians, and they talk about the other nomad tribes, they describe their burial rituals, and they describe exactly the type of thing that you find in North America with some of these mounds, specifically in Columbus, Ohio, up in northern Clintonville up here. These destroyed mounds that are gone. I've been looking for one for like 2 months. I mean, I've been lazy with it, but it's been 2 months. I haven't actually gone down like every day. But
there's like no map. And like you bringing up the fact the destruction of them is huge, because here in Oregon, there's this huge long valley, and they've said they were lined with mounds, and I might have found one looking at an overhead map, but otherwise there's no evidence. And then they have artifacts in some museums and stuff, but there's very little. And the other interesting thing here is that there are some forts. This is the other thing we should look up a little more too, but and maybe this is just the connection to the sacred land aspect and the whatever energy potentially are in these spots. But how many of these are connected to Native American land? Because that is how it is here, where it's sacred land, like where some of these forts were, and they've taken it back over.
We don't have anything like that in Ohio. It's the
there's
Native
no
tribes.
Reservation?
No, there's nothing. And the thing is, the Native tribes come back once per year to have some sort of like meetup where they go and travel around to the various sites and kind of just discuss it. But yeah, there's no reservations, there's no population. They all got shipped out. Because
I was gonna say, I know there's a distinct tribe from the Ohio, right? Is the Cherokee specifically Ohio, or I'm thinking that I know they were spread out. I feel like it's not a bigger name, it's a smaller name. And like Wisconsin, it was the Menominee.
We had tons of tribes. We had like the Wyandotte, the Hopewell, the Adena mound builder culture. We had the
okay, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we had tons of different tribes. I mean, even the Susquehanna may have made their way into this area, but
that's a fact.
It took like about like the Tecumseh and the Prophet, right? They're from around Dayton, Ohio area, I believe, Piqua.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it was basically the main hub for a lot of these.
And where it's located, yeah. If you look at a map, if you guys, it's like central and with the lakes and everything too.
I mean, yeah, we're looking at a map right now. Just look how many.
I mean, like pulling it out of like where you can see where the Great Lakes situate in accordance to like Gary, Indiana is like the hub now, but like Ohio, the relation is what I'm saying, like to the East Coast, and it would have been the hub because of the where people how they would have traveled to Chicago, because they're not necessarily going up into Wisconsin back then.
Brown Boy's closer to Chicago than I am. He's in northwestern Ohio, I believe, so he knows more about that area than I do. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many different tribes here, and as you can see from this map alone, just in Franklin County, which is the capital area of Ohio, this looks like it's over 50 different mounds, if not more than that.
No more. Yeah. And I mean,
And
that's not probably going to be all of them
I
or
think
all of the.
I finally did. I found one the other day though. Maybe it's this one right here. I think I looked at it. I think it's being destroyed currently. I took a video of it, but it's an active construction site, so I couldn't get to it. But yeah, this is. I think I found this mountain. It's huge. If it is the same thing, I have a video of it.
Who would have owned this land before? It would have been the state or the city. It was probably the state that owns it and then sells it off for just development, right?
Well, I'm not sure in the situation because this area is like far west Columbus, and it was mostly cornfields for a long time until recently. These areas have been getting developed a lot. I don't really come down here that much though, but sometimes I drive down here. I drove past it to go clean down here. I clean for a living, so I was cleaning down in this area down here where it says Rome.
Yeah.
So
we have a Rome, Oregon, too, but
yeah. So I was just driving through there, and I spotted a random mountain and just went over and checked it out. But these ones up here where it says brown, because I don't think you can see my mouse, but I have a video on a channel that I've written before where I found one of these ones as well. But this area is actually pretty massive. Like to get from where it says brown right here to get to the other side of the map would be at least a 45-minute drive, if not an hour. So it's not like it's like small.
And the placement of these now, I do see some like around the rivers. Okay, maybe most of them are
this is not very accurate though. Like the amount of earthworks that if I had some sort of LiDAR to find out if they're earthworks, it's unbelievable because I don't know. I don't know if there's another way to find out if they're earthworks or not, if they're mounds or not, but it just seems like there's so much more going on than what is on this map.
I agree. And I agree with you on the LiDAR thing. Like that's huge in what we need, and hoping to get that in Utah because that's going to really help us be able to see the structures properly and see now if we were able to do that in the whole state. But it is interesting, like if there was a way to figure out like the time frames for some of the leveling on these, and also what generally goes into place. Is it just housing development, or is there like certain types of businesses that end up in these areas?
Today I was
and
out.
The other thing is like if we were really breaking it down, we could start doing also like the sacred geometry type measurements on connecting them with other sites and other things. Now I don't know how much the mounds are connected to that, but I'm just saying like this is all the stuff that would be good as we're doing on the ground work.
There's legends in all of ancient culture that talks about people when they pass these mountains, they would place like a stone there to, I guess, like get some sort of blessing and also pay homage and also to help with directions. There's like a trinity of effects, but because you find these mountains, you're not just finding these mounds in North America. That's another connection. Like this is just these mounds are all over the planet. Like they're literally everywhere. They're called different things in different parts of the world. They give them different names, so you can't make the connection. But when you look up things like, for example, tumulus in Europe, you'll find a mound. But if you type in mound Europe, you don't find anything. But if you type, or like for example, specifically, if you type in cairn Europe, then you'll get like Scotland and stuff like that. It's just like they try to separate it and they try to make it hard to find this information.
Yes, and like how they call something a structure, dwelling, and so when you're like Googling this stuff, because I found that when I was trying to figure out where all the ruins were in Utah and Colorado when I went on the trip, so I could, and it's all different how it's named, and some of them you end up finding it through another article that takes you to the site, but otherwise like you have to really search for it. That is, yeah. And there's a lot of sites that aren't marked. In some ways, this might be on purpose, and a lot of people say it is, that the locals know and nobody else knows. And it's sort of like, no, we're going to keep this hush-hush for a reason.
No, that's 100% true. I mean, because there's a mound out in Reynoldsburg, Ohio that I've been looking for. and there's like some sort of historical society that's in that city, and they're like keeping it under wraps, and you have to like pay and become a member to like find out information. It's the weirdest thing, but when you go there, it's like in this blocked off community. So unless I want to take a chance to get inside of there, I can't even search for it. If you look at on Google Earth, it doesn't look like there's anything there. But just like in areas I know where there's something there, on Google Earth it doesn't show up. Like
Yeah.
it's really weird.
Sorry. Well, it's like that World War II bunker I just showed you on that Kodiak Island that had the direct name connection to the Russians, which is interesting. On top of the fact that it isn't marked, and that yes, you can find info on it, but it's not. There's no like easy search for it. I couldn't just type in the name of it, and nowhere in the history of the town to talk about that there was like a World War II base there. So anyway, I just find it's interesting, and trying to figure out the base thing as well a little bit, the purpose of them at the end of the day.
Yeah, the World War II narrative is insane. I don't even know what to think about it anymore. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of my older family members, I never got the chance to like talk to them about what history is actually like. So I don't know. It's hard to.
I have gotten to talk to my dad a little bit more because he was in the Navy during Vietnam, and just like what he saw, like go to the other countries and stuff a little bit. And some of the stuff when I bring up the architecture factors with them, and the fact like why don't we build this way anymore, and there's a lot of like, oh, okay, well, we agree with you on that. There's some unusual things with that. Like I brought up, like what was the problem with Notre Dame? Like why they were like terrified they weren't going to be able to rebuild it at all, or like why it's, and some of that was like I know they were trying to like I think go back to some more original architecture that had been overseen before, but still, like again, we don't. Like they had sconce making kits to like make these fancy architect designs. It wasn't like it was that much extra work, like fill in, and they probably use more geopolymer too. But I'm just saying, like, why don't we do that anymore? And it's money and cost and stuff. But then there's this whole factor, like we no longer live. Like our materials are no longer as connected to the earth. They lack that ability to transmute the electromagnetic field properly, is how I see it. Like we live our houses are dustier because the walls no longer attract the dust, and so that we live amongst it more.
No, I mean, I definitely think it's possible that there was some sort of civilization that had that type of advanced technology you're describing, and that could be a reason why you have these kind of like myths, I guess, that are widespread. But I don't know. This is the mound that that I think I found. So I was just driving, and see a second. I see it in the background here.
This actually is making me miss the Midwest a little bit. There's something about the fields like that.
You can't really see it because it's so blurry, but right here, can you see my mouse by any chance?
Yeah, no, and I can see the mound.
So that's it. I don't know why it's so blurry though, but I do get close to it. So just showing how they're. Yeah, so.
Oh, do you know? Is that like an area you could I know you just got your drone and you have to figure it out, but is that an area where you could fly your drone?
Yeah, I just need to get down there soon because it looks like they're completely taking it apart. So yeah, this is what it looks like from the national road. This national road goes all the way from the east coast of California, by the way.
Oh.
So yeah, so then I drove into the neighborhood to check it out.
20, is it? It's not Highway 20, is it?
That's Broad Street. I think it's called 40 or 44 or something.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I went in here and checked out, but look, they're just building something in here. It looks like they're destroying it. So this is the mound right here. If it is a mound, I don't know what else it would be. I'll just play the video. I need to turn it down for me
Yeah.
so it doesn't. There we go. Yeah, they're digging out and they're putting apartments there.
Yeah, you can see they're putting a hill up the side of it. Wow. I wonder if you can go in there and get any I don't know if it'd be worth it or not, but a sample off the side of that. I don't see any rock in there.
I mean, I thought about going on there on Sunday because, I mean, no one's gonna be working there on Sunday, and just
it's a great idea. You'd be like, just be like one of those weird nosy neighbors. I'm just checking out the work site. I'm thinking about living here. So it's a nice website, nice looking apartments.
Yeah, I mean,
seriously, like I do that more now. Like, just put myself in situations where someone's going to ask me a question. I'll just come up with some kind of idea. Like, and I have had a couple where, like, what are you doing? And sometimes also I just pretend I'm looking for rocks. For some reason, that works really well.
looking for
okay, it's like annoying. Yeah, like because told you I'm a nerdy rock hound. So I'm looking for my agates and my jaspers. So I'm like, oh yeah, I heard there's petrified wood over here. That's what I say. It's like all over the state, so I can get away with that. Anyway, go ahead.
There's like a pyramidal structure towards Buckeye Lake, Ohio that I was going to go to, but it's on private property, and I thought about telling him I was looking for a dog or something so I could get in there and record it.
It's not a bad idea. Where's this pyramid documented, by the way? Is it like known knowledge or you found it like in old literature?
I didn't find it. I heard about it from CF Apps, this channel. This guy posted a video about it and said it was the largest pyramidal structure in North America. And
whoa.
I mean, the guy commented on the video.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's all good. The guy that owns the property commented on his video. My friend Golden Gate Starfort sent it to me, and it was basically because I told Golden Gate I was going to go down there. He's like, I just found this comment on the video that said, "Don't trespass." The guy like commented on the video and told people specifically not to come there. So that's why.
Did he say anything else? Did he say like no one's going to be given special access, or did he just say no trespassing?
He just said people. It was something along the lines of people have vandalized it in the past, and they have cameras and they can make it down there quick and stuff.
So it sounds like this could be a good opportunity to contact the guy and just be straightforward. I just want to check this out. You can be there the whole time. I'm only going there because I'm fascinated in the history. And if you wanted to be on camera or not, or just share your voice, you might be into that. Because that's probably the problem is everybody's trying to like break through the damn fence instead of straight up ask the guy.
Well, and then you might be able to. It's a huge, like, you can just go off the highway, basically just pull over, and because that's the best. Excuse me, that's the best way to get in is just to pull off the side of the highway right there.
So you lost a squirrel.
Yeah, so I was gonna say is just take a dog leash with me and be like, yeah, I'm looking for my dog. But at the same time, I think it is a good idea to just reach out to him and just see how he feels about it, I guess. But he's probably been hit up by so many people after that video, especially.
I don't know. I get the vibe if he's not being like sorry. That little bark is coming from a dog that's supposed to be a Chihuahua and a Yorkie. Okay. Anyway, I don't know. I think it might be worth it. Oh, there's what we talked about. I'm going to mute myself for a minute while I shut them up nicely.
Yeah, this is the Russian Federation coat of arms. It just kind of represents what we were talking about earlier a little bit. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Sango. So the guy on the horse could represent the masculine taking over. The serpent on the ground represents the feminine. The double-headed eagle represents the duality between men and women.
Yes, and what I love about this is I was watching this astrologer and I like her interpretation of things. And that's why I kind of struck about Lilith too, because in this exact discussion, and it was like right after we talked and I went, what the frick is with the sink? but she went into the fact that the dragon does represent that it's like the Lilith and the feminine side. And so when I heard that, I was like, oh, bam.
Well, that's where the debate comes into it, though, is because is the feminine the good guys, or are they the bad guys, or is it just misrepresented in general? Because if you think about it, like, what are the problems in modern society right now that most people hate? We hate that there are people trying to. But this is going to get very inappropriate. Should I even bring this up on your channel?
Yes. Yeah, I told you. I've already screwed the pooch, so we're good.
But there are groups advocating for basically like pedophilia to be legal, and they like try to justify it, like even have TED Talks where there's people, describing it in certain terms, which references all the way back to Greek society where a lot of this stuff comes from. So is the feminine?
Well, we do have a long, like, discussing path along with that. I mean, it's obviously it's gotten really messed up, but yeah, just like our history of like reproduction and like yeah, it's interesting. That's why we do have to, I think, really break down both sides and not just say like, yeah, we're just waiting for this to happen because that's for the feminine to come back or the masculine to come back so that we can.
Society we live in. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're okay.
I was gonna say the society we live in right now is debatably a mixture of both.
Yeah.
But that's why the rule of Zeus in Greek mythology is like describing what's going on right now, because Zeus, he doesn't necessarily rule as the masculine order. He is different than what Uranus was, which was the masculine complete rule. Zeus cooperates with the goddesses and has even some debate that he adheres to what the goddesses' will are, with the example being his wife, or the fates are another example where he has to basically follow what the fates say, which the fates are like a feminine energy. But this guy in the chat right here, Mjolnir's Wish, says the feminine basically represents potentially a bloodline or a different society or rulership compared to the masculine. So in a historical context, the most cliche description of this is that when the Indo-Europeans or the Aryans arrived, they potentially brought with them a one god type society, which represents the masculine. Before this, the people who were in the area of Sumeria or Mesopotamia, the Levant, North Africa, Macedonia, Italy, all these places, they were allegedly a feminine type civilization with a matriarchy type society where women were in charge. So when the Proto-Indo-Europeans or the Aryans arrived, they brought this masculine rule with them where they had a god instead, and there was more order in society. And they say that a lot of these myths, like the Garden of Eden, all this stuff is just like a representation of telling these different stories throughout history of these societies going back and forth of being in power.
And that's why I do personally have always resonated with this, is that concept of balance that we have both. So what's up, DJ? I agree with that. But I just like understanding obviously I think we really dissecting this is going to help us see that a little bit more. But because it's just this back and forth, like, why are we living in this dualistic world? Why isn't there something else? And it does, and you pushed on that because
that's where the third this is only one.
Yeah.
This is only one paradigm, though. This is where like you start thinking about other possibilities. Like, is there a third option where there is a person who created this entire conflict and created both sides in order to basically, I guess, be in power and get what they need out of us by being able to distract us with this conflict? Like, say, for example,
or potentially cause us to manifest it, is what I've said too. Like, literally put the story in front of us so we create it.
Yeah, or they're just describing their family history, for example. Maybe some of them disagreed about maybe some of them disagreed about how to rule over us. So that's the people we hear about in these certain myths who help out humanity, like Prometheus or whatever else. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just so many different possibilities of the ways you can think about it. But the society we live in now basically is like a representation of the feminine potentially working its way back into power over time through manipulation and seduction to get what they want, instead of just taking over. Like when the masculine comes to power, it's through force, and it usually only lasts during the lifetime of the guy who actually did the military conquest. The feminine, however, it's pretty much either influential or in power from that point when that first ruler dies. From that point forward, think of it in this context, I guess. You have the masculine ruler who has a son. The son is now, when the father passes away, he's kind of like under the influence of the mother, right? And in some situations, especially in Greek mythology and Roman mythology, there's a sort of incestuous relationship between the mother and the son, where the mother, for some reason, marries the son and then becomes basically like the shadow ruler, and sometimes she even assassinates her own son. It's really weird, but modern society could basically be described as like the feminine coming back into power. But then again, that's just putting all the blame on the feminine, saying and that it's kind of evil, because a lot of the stuff that's happening, people say is evil. So it's I don't know, it's really confusing. It's kind of what I'm hung up on right now.
I think that's what a lot of us are. I mean, I think some people, the way they talk about it, I think, or maybe they do feel this way, that they have it figured out. I just think it's the fact that it's this story that plays out amongst everything. It doesn't make it doesn't make sense to me that it's, oh, like here you've been given everything you need right now. Like we're just exposing it all, we're making it really clear for you on what the right choice is. I think it's very complicated.
This guy says the masculine is the protector of our species. Yeah, I mean that's once again debatable, because like all of these concepts could have been created within the last 100 years. Because, for example, like I don't know anything about your politics or what you talk about, but say for example you blame a lot of history on a certain group of people. Okay, so let's take that certain group of people. When did they come to power? About a little over 100 and something years ago. See what I'm saying? So it's I don't know how you feel about that situation, but just from that perspective, you can already kind of figure out where some of this stuff is coming from. Because in ancient myths, you have the Amazons, for example, which are a completely feminine civilization, where they didn't even need men until they wanted to reproduce, right? But once again, is that all created just to kind of throw off the order of society that we currently have? Was that created 100 years ago to influence, what's going on right now with women? Who knows?
Yeah, and that's, I think, what's important for us to continue talking about, breaking down. Because as somebody who feels very much like the matriarch was missing before, I think it's really important to have those things questioned.
The purple rain is it?
Sorry, what? Purple rain? Oh, I see. Purple. Oh, not RAIN.
The purple rain is interesting because it ties all the way back to what we have, like the first origins of civilization. Purple is like a huge part of that, and one of the key figures in history is Dionysus. Like he said, he's related to purple. He's said to be like he represents purple. Basically, he's described as being purple. So I think that this guy kind of knows where I'm coming from with some of this stuff, if he knows about the whole purple connection to what I'm talking about. The Khazari Mafia, yeah, that's one thing that I'm not sure about. I'm not sure how much of that is true. Women in some cultures went so far as to cut off their breasts. Yeah, the Amazonians. That's kind of what Herodotus talks about. I say purple rain as well. Blue bloods.
That's interesting because I don't feel like there's like a, like considering what's happening right now. Is there a time in history where men were cutting off their penises?
Oh yeah, all
For
the
any
time. You never heard
reason?
about you never heard about that?
Oh, no.
The eunuchs?
Wait, what? There was like a time where that was like the sought after. So
a lot of history, yeah. The people became eunuchs for various reasons around the world. Like one example is in China. In order to serve inside of the imperial palace, you had to be a eunuch if you wanted to be a man. So people would, cut it off so they could have a better life. And eventually, those people became sort of like the puppet leaders of the entire government because which completely contradicted the original purpose behind it, because the reason they made them cut it off to begin with is so they wouldn't try to become powerful. But I don't know, it's just funny. Yeah, so
that's really funny because I mean, I've heard of the eunuch, right? But I think in my mind, I thought that was an actual. Maybe I do remember there was castration involved, but I think I thought it was more about how they were born. So anyway,
those guys went through some pain. It's ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense. But yeah, I guess we could quickly go over one more thing in relation to the Russian connection if you want to, and then maybe call it.
we'll just read this little last bit here on here, which isn't necessarily part of the history that I read, but they established themselves in such strength that the meager Spanish forces to the south, this would have been 1815, realized they were unable to evict the Russians. And they're talking based on this like blockhouse structure that I'm walking into right in this video. So that's interesting. So the Spanish were definitely a heavy force in America at that time.
You said it was 1814?
No, that was earlier. I'm thinking of the Hawaiian. 1812. It was definitely like shortly after the 1800s. I think it was 1812. Fort Ross was built. And then that's what's weird to me about this German physician that built the Hawaiian fort, because he didn't actually have the jurisdiction to do it. And supposedly it was to expand the lands, but I don't remember reading much about them. There was some fur trading going on, but it wasn't like in Hawaii, there wasn't excessive. They ended up focusing more on the civil wars that were going on when he was there. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I just saw that as I was playing this, but this was pretty cool to check out, this fort. And like I told you, like the woodworking, some of the stuff you can tell is new, like even that handle. And I did find old footage of it collapse. I found old footage of the chapel collapse. It looked like the roof actually survived, which was interesting. But most of the other buildings were standing in the picture. So, because what we're told is that, just so everyone knows, that like what I'm walking through was completely recreated for reenactment purposes. So here I kind of like look at the whole courtyard. And this is what was bad. Like you see those people way over there, they're all dressed up in attire for the times. I thought, oh, this is perfect. Nobody else was out there. So
yeah, for me, I think it was likely more different. Like it was just something different than that completely, because these people were building far more magnificent cities than this in this time period and way before this time period. So this reconstruction probably just a way for them to make it seem stupid.
Well, and I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you. I'm gonna do better about that with you, I promise.
That's all good. I was done.
Hawaii, the Star Fort, the fact that it was wood, and then the fact that Schaffer, or whatever, told or taught the native how to build that. He showed him the design, he gave him the plan, and then supposedly the king is who built it all. So it's good stuff and very interesting.
You said the Spanish were attacking the fort in 1812.
Yeah, they could not evict the Russians because of their superior bunkhouse design.
I think that in that case, the easiest thing to do would be to find evidence of a building from the 1800s in Mexico or South America that was built by the Spanish, and then we would be able to
That's
say,
not going to be hard.
like, say for example, you find like this massive cathedral that was built in 1812 in Mexico, right? Why would they go all the way up to these areas in America and not be able to build something similar to that? If that's the narrative that they're building in 1812 in Mexico. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and then I think this will be helpful if we look up that Spanish route, I shouldn't say look it up, but get it like laid out really nicely, because there's not really great maps on that, like the old Spanish route through the Americas and into Mexico, and or up from there, I should say. And just, I think that's important to this story too, on where they were trekking through.
I can pull up a map of that real quick if you want to just take a look at the expansion of.
Yeah. And am I wrong that though there's not like, well, there isn't a super detailed map, if I'm not mistaken, when you try to zoom in on certain areas. Maybe there's a decent one on the whole area.
Are you talking like a specific trail, or are you talking just the area?
The old Spanish trail that would have been, like, I think they tell us the 1500s is when the Spanish came through. And then like the connection with when they came through Utah, and there's like sections in Utah that they walk through that you can't, like me and Bill were trying to figure it out. Thank you, Bernie. I'm sorry I didn't say anything to you earlier. I did see you mention that Shem and I were welcome to come, so I appreciate it. And I'm definitely going to try because I'm still awake. Anyway, so they were, or we were having a hard time because there's two routes that they took through Utah, and one of them they went up higher, and there's a bunch of speculation of some lost gold mines and like through that area.
Well, I don't know. I don't have a map of the exact trail that you're talking about. I want to see that. That sounds amazing. But I do. There's a map on Wikipedia that I've seen before that just shows like how they expanded over time, and it does go into Utah. So just
yes, can you pull it up then, please? And as soon as you pull it up, I'll pop it up, and just give me 1 second, everyone. I just have to go to the bathroom really quick. So while he gets that popped up, it won't take me very long. You can watch this.
It's up now if you want to start.
Oh, I see it. Okay, perfect. Then you can talk about it. I will literally be right back.
Yeah, I don't know much about this in general, but I've seen this map before. You can see here that has the time period she was talking about earlier. She was talking about the Russians in 1812 building that fort and fending off the Spanish. Spanish were up into the middle of America in this time period. So, government under traditional Spanish law, which means it's like a crown colony. Combine the Dutch and the Spanish, and you have the Netherlands and the Netherlands. Yeah, I think John Levi's been making some progress on that Norumbega city. It's pretty impressive stuff.
You should show everybody what you got today, or I don't know if you got it today, but.
Oh, you're talking about the book?
Yeah, yeah. You talk about if people think Shem's a hater.
All right. So one more thing. So this one last thing in relation to the Russian topic of the video, real quick, before we go into that book and cut it off here. So just one more connection to show that during the time period that we've been discussing of the Russians allegedly coming over across the Bering Strait to America, which I think was 1552, correct?
Yeah,
The Romanov
dynasty. No, sorry. It was later. They said they didn't reach the Pacific until 16. I'm gonna mess it up. Something 6, like 46 or something like that, or 49. So it was quite a bit later. And technically, they're telling us they didn't come over They didn't establish anything until about 1740, is what they're saying.
Okay, so yeah, that actually does change things quite drastically because the Romanovs came to power in the 1600s. But regardless, we do have records beforehand of them coming and be like long before the Romanovs in the 1200s, 1300s, 1100s. But this is from Anatoly Fomenko. He's basically describing how when the Romanovs came to power, they usurped the original order of what the Russian Federation was, which could be considered various different names like the Huns or the Mongolians or the Tartars, just all these, like, it was basically like a federation of all these peoples until the Romanovs came to power. So I'll zoom in a little bit here and we can read some of it before.
Yeah, if you want to.
So here we go. The Tartar and Mongol yoke was merely a period of military rule in Russia, which has never been conquered by any foreign force. So what that means is that every person that's ever ruled Russia was not a foreigner. They were basically already considered whatever that civilization was called at that time. It was not called Russia, but the supreme ruler was the military leader known as the Khan or Tsar. So why is that?
Why is that relevant? Sorry, go ahead.
Why is that relevant? Because if you look at the history of Russia, mainstream history, they call the leader the Tsar, which means Khan. It's the same exact thing as that term for the Mongolians, who are also the Tartars, who were an advanced society that built places like Beijing, China, like just these advanced cities, canal systems, everything. So it's not like when you say they're Mongols, you're not saying there's some nomadic tribe that's wandering around doing nothing. They actually built insane architecture, had systems set up with paper currency, all these advanced technologies, just everything. But anyways, let's continue. Okay. Here we go. The Romanovs acted as usurpers insofar as the old history of Horde Russia was concerned. They needed to introduce a radically novel interpretation of previous period in Russian history. One must admit that they managed to do so aptly, though. They distorted the entire history of Russia beyond recognition, keeping most of the actual facts intact. So basically, they just, I don't know exactly what he means by that. Maybe they like kept the stories the same, but just changed who was involved in it. Not sure. So yeah, this part's interesting. The history of Horde Russia, whose populace had been divided into civilians and professional warriors. The actual Horde was declared to have been the epoch of foreign conquest. As a result of the Horde, where the Russian army transformed the horse of foreign invaders from mysterious distant land under the clothes of Romanovian historians. Okay, so that's really confusing, but basically what this means, in my opinion, is that at one point Russia was similar to something like ancient Carthage, where the citizens didn't necessarily have to serve in the military. This could have been just the area of around Moscow, not sure. And they had other people fighting the wars for them. Not sure. That's pretty confusing.
Yeah.
One last thing. However, our research demonstrates that the medieval meaning of the word had differed from the modern completely. Mongolia or Tartar Mongolia, Tartary, was the name of the medieval Russian Empire. So I'll say it again. Mongolia or Tartar Mongolia, Tartary, was the name of the medieval Russian Empire, which we also call Horde Russia. It is similar to the terms Russian Empire, Soviet Union, and Russian Federation, in the sense that its populace has always been multinational. So
Okay, and then you realize what you just did with horde. I mean, I know that word's not necessarily that. It's like a little more, it's bigger than that. But we just read that other thing where they described them as the Northern Horde, remember?
yes,
Yeah.
the Northern Horde. Yeah, they use these terms like horde and Hun very loosely, and barbarian to describe these people because they just try to make them seem stupid or primitive. Like, I mean, even in World War II and World War I, they called the German people Huns to try to like and even barbarians, they tried to make them seem like they're these savage people. It doesn't even make sense. And the most atrocious example of this is when the Huns took over ancient Rome. Basically, they, like, in mainstream history, it literally says that the Senate continued as if nothing happened. But then they try to make it seem like these, like, savages took over, when in reality they were just civilized people who took over the city and changed the laws. And for some reason that pissed off whoever won, because they deleted all their records and even, like, went as far as carving off faces and murals and stuff of these people. But they were like an advanced society that didn't really change anything that was taking place in Rome, but they try to play it off as if they're these savages or these barbarians for some reason. It's a strange thing.
Yeah. I mean, and that connects with them, like, trying to play off that we slowly evolved out of that. Personally, we were just extremely barbaric and savages. They love those words.
All right, so last thing, and then the book. Mongolia translates from Greek as the Great Empire or the Great Kingdom. If you look at some old maps, you'll see that the area of Siberia, Mongolia, Asia in general is just very populated, has these insane structures. If you read sources like Herodotus or Diodorus of Sicily or even Marco Polo, you'll hear of all these cities and all these places set up in the East that are just beyond your imagination. So something was definitely going on over there. Did those people make their way over to America? More than likely. We have other sources who are claimed to be pseudo-scientists or pseudo-archaeologists by the mainstream who are reporting the stuff in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s. It just depends on what you want to believe. But okay, enough ranting.
That wasn't ranting at all. I really enjoy what you're able to pull together, so I appreciate you big time.
Thanks for having me. Just some random dude. All right, so let's see. The John Levi book.
Read it, and
it's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, it's nice.
Shem spent his hard-earned money on this.
I can't give it a full review right now because I read it like 2.5 months ago now. But one thing I will show that's weird about this book, for anyone who wants to pick it up, maybe we can get them to do a reprint. But just some of the
to read through.
Some of the chapters, the way it's divided up, are just really strange. Like, there's examples where it says like chapter 7, and then it will have like an entire blank page next to it.
Does he talk about himself personally and all that, or is it all research?
It's basically like him describing his perception on the best way to live.
Oh.
And he also gives like mild advice.
It's all off-grid. He doesn't get into it. I just realized the whole thing says, I realized the title says off-grid. Yeah, so it obviously is about that, but I think I was thinking he was going to have some Tartaria stuff in there, but I guess not.
So we'll just read a quick passage. This is a good one. This is from his chapter called Modern Slavery. So this is just one paragraph. It says, "It is said the average American works 3 months out of the year to pay their federal taxes. Income tax was intended for corporations and should not be imposed on the hourly labor of men. Taxes were to be imposed on a corporate profit. Labor is not profit. Although unconstitutional, you can be in prison for not paying taxes." So it's kind of like he's sharing knowledge, but at the same time, he's kind of like ranting a little bit about how he feels about stuff.
I'm already feeling like you could do a parody while reading this.
Here's his little house.
Oh yeah, I kind of saw it when he was building it a little bit. It's kind of when I stopped watching him, is like he was finishing the inside. But not to say I haven't seen any of his stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm just confused about how the layout of the book got a little bit messed up. Other than that, and there's a couple random typos, but this book is pretty old though. I mean,
it is.
There's an Amazon review on the back from 2013, so where it's 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure if he's gonna. Actually, he did. That's right. He said on one of his videos recently he's working on a new book with some guy. So
I was gonna say, did he do that book like when he started doing YouTube? I don't know how long he's been on YouTube.
He's been on YouTube for a long time, but his first videos weren't about history. Like it was like he was like a yoga video or something as his first video. I don't know if it's still there or not, but I have it downloaded.
Not at him. All of it is laughing with him, and I hope that he finds humor in Shem's work because it's gold.
I don't know. I can't tell. Is this intentional? I don't know. Like it just seems weird. It could be intentional, I guess. Like just that picture is so small.
But, you know, to be honest, back then, like printing your own book like that wasn't necessarily that easy. And I only know this because one of my jobs was I worked at a publication production place and put books together. What is that supposed to be of? He's obviously showing some symbolism with the pyramids and columns or something, or am I not? Am I totally missing that? Is it just random?
Yeah, he just put random art in here, but he gave a story about the star. He said he's been drawing it ever since he was a kid, and this is his logo for his channel. But this star is actually also the 8-pointed star of Inanna, or the goddess, which ties back into what I was talking about earlier. I don't know.
I don't know.
You can say whatever you want to say about that, but yeah, I mean, I would recommend picking up this book. Basically, at the end of the day, is what I'm trying to say. I like it. I mean, I read it in 2 days. It's really short. I mean, you could read it in like 2 hours probably, but I just took a break because I wanted to get my money's worth. So I just like split it into 2 days. But I could have read it all in one sitting. It's very short, big text.
Yeah,
if you like John Levi, you're gonna like the book because he puts his personality into it. You can definitely tell it's him writing it.
Yeah, you totally could do a read through. And stay tuned for read throughs by Shem.
No, I don't know. I want to do a review.
It's gonna get off grid. All right, that was cheesy enough. Okay. Well, I think this is good, and Bernie's poking at us, so maybe we should hop over and support. So you guys should all come over there. Somebody post a link for Bernie if you don't mind, please. And I'm sorry, because some of you are newer names, and I am going to go back through and make you moderators, because I do kind of do it like Bernie. But thank you all for being here. This is great. Shem, you brought some people over, some people calling you out. So, and I apologize because I think we were meaning to actually stream this on Shem's channel, not just mine. So that when we do the next one, we'll figure that out. So, yeah.
Appreciate you having me. Shout out to the chat. Thanks for hanging out.
Definitely.
Sorry for my cat.
You. No, that was excellent. I think that may have to go. I don't know. I told you when I heard his cat going off the other day, it made me, because I'm house sitting. I've been here for like a week and I'm missing my cat now. And my parents literally sent me a picture of my cat on their lap because they're watching her and like saying, "Oh, I think she's a grandma and grandpa kitty now." It's cute. All right. Yeah, it's part of life. So I love it. Most of us are actually. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to shut up anyway. Thank you. Y'all have a good one. I really appreciate y'all stopping by. And we'll see you on the next one because we're going to do this again. So peace out. And I don't have a cool outro. So, and I realized my, the intro I played said Grand Rising, like it was the morning. So Grand Rising, everybody. All right. I'm going to just play the same thing to take us out with. And we don't even have to watch it for as long. So while I awkwardly try to find this really quick, I'm going to fill in the space with that. Wait, who is that? That's Robert, right? Is that her?
Yeah, Robert Suffer.
Is that his high school photo?
I don't know what it's from, but
I love it. That's how it looks like it. All right, guys, thank you so much, and really appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Bye.